For our workshop on subjunctive mood, we're going to talk about shift errors in several parts of writing. I wanted to start with these others because they are more common and I think they will be easier for you to identify so that when we look at subjunctive and indicative mood, it will be easier for you to identify what those errors are. So we can have several different types of shift errors in writing. The first is verb tense. So that would be using a certain verb tense and then switching to another, which is pretty common in beginning writers, using past tense and then shifting to present tense and then shifting back. Voice is changing from active voice to passive voice, and I will discuss more about what that is when I get to that section. Mood is changing between indicative and subjunctive mood. In this case, it says imperative and indicative, but we'll be looking at indicative and subjunctive for this video. Shift errors in person, so changing from point of view, and a lot of students do this. They will start in third person and then they will use first person or second person. And I'm not talking about using a personal anecdote in shifting. That is okay, and that is being done purposefully. I'm talking about when you accidentally start throwing in a you or a they when you've been using first person. And then last is shift errors in number. So that is using plural and singular antecedents to refer to the wrong pronoun. First, we're going to talk about consistency in verb tense. So our examples are Jack climbs up the hill and decided to visit Jill. Jack climbs is present tense and decided is past tense. So we need to keep those the same. So we have Jack climbs up the hill and decides to visit Jill. Jack will go to Jill's house after he fell down the hill. That doesn't make sense. Jack will go to Jill's house after he will fall down the hill. Or Jack will go to Jill's house after he falls down the hill, because that is showing present progressive. Jill stayed at the top of the hill while Jack is taken to the hospital. We would say Jill stayed at the top of the hill while Jack went to the hospital, to show that those are both in past tense. Active voice and passive voice. In active voice, the subject is the one who is performing the action of the verb. So our example is Cinderella swept the cinders in the hearth. Cinderella is the one performing the action of the verb swept, and the cinders are receiving that action. They are the ones being swept. Passive voice is the opposite, when the object is the one performing the action of the verb. The cinders in the hearth were swept. So instead of actively saying that Cinderella was sweeping, we're saying that the cinders were swept. Here are some more examples. After Jack turned on the ignition, a red warning light was observed. So instead we would say after Jack turned on the ignition, because that is active, he saw a red warning light to show active voice. As mentioned in the flipped assignment, indicative mood is used when discussing real events and facts. For example, I eat grapes, because that is a fact that I eat grapes. Imperative is giving a command, and usually there is an implied subject. So take your seat would be one. This is in contrast to saying, Susan, take your seat. The implied subject is whoever I am speaking to. Take your seat. Interrogative is like the word interrogate. Use that when asking a question. Will you take Julia to the dance? And then subjunctive is, as explained in your flipped assignment, when you are discussing wishes, hypothetical situations, dreams, opinions, possibilities, anything that is contrary to concrete fact. So our example is, if I were you, I would tell the truth. But instead of saying, if I was you, I would tell the truth, to indicate that that is not ever possible for me to be you, we would say, if I were you, I would tell the truth. Next is consistency in person. This is when you shift from point of view. So I would rather call this consistency in point of view. So maintaining first person point of view or second person or third person, and not shifting back and forth unless you're using a personal anecdote and doing so intentionally. So we would say a person should wear his or her seatbelt. So we're talking in third person. If you don't, you risk not only a citation but injury. So that shifts to second person. We want to maintain the same point of view. Last is consistency in number. This is a common mistake, and it's an easy one to fix when you know what you're looking for. So this is when you are shifting from singular and plural pronouns to singular or plural antecedent. If you have a singular pronoun, you want to use a singular antecedent. The antecedent is the thing that the pronoun is referring to. So if I am talking about him, who is the him that I'm referring to? Him is the pronoun, and the antecedent is Bob. We would not say, if someone asks for customer service, then give them Mr. Smith's number. Someone is indicating a singular pronoun, so we would say give him or her. Each student must sign their locker agreement. Each indicates a singular pronoun. Each, every, someone, all indicate singular pronouns, so we would use singular antecedents. Each student must sign his or her locker agreement. I have a couple of stations for you to practice consistency in voice and number and point of view, and then also consistency in using subjunctive mood or indicative mood.